We're standing in the Big Sunflower River here in Sunflower County near Sunflower, Mississippi. This particular reach of the Big Sunflower is very unique in several ways. It still has gravel substrates. You have perennial flow. Even at the gauge at Sunflower right now is reading 0, but you're still having flow. So there's some connection to the groundwater here in this particular reach. Also on both sides, we have a very well developed forested area, riparian zone. And this keeps a lot of the sediments from the agricultural fields that surround the river, keeps those sediments from flowing into the river. And with the perennial flow, it scours the gravel and keeps the gravel clean. And so fish and invertebrates and mussels that utilize these types of habitats are thriving. And so it's a reference reach for us. It's something that we can compare this particular gravel bar reach with other sites in the Yazoo Delta. We've been sampling the Yazoo Delta since 1990. Now the Yazoo Delta is about 200 miles long from Memphis to Vicksburg, about 70 miles wide, and the Yazoo River runs through it, and the Big Sunflower is one of the major tributaries. We began sampling in 1990 to evaluate potential impacts of flood control projects in the Delta. By around the early 2000s, however, we began actually resampling to look at ecosystem restoration projects. Over the past 25 years of sampling, we have documented about 95 species of fish. Out of that 95 species that occur in the Yazoo Basin wide, there are about 65 species of fish that occur in the Big Sunflower River. Most of those species, the abundance of the species, are generally made up of some of your more tolerant type fish species like gambusia, which is the mosquito fish, orange-spotted sunfish, some of the small white crappie. They're really tolerant of slow-flowing, turbid waters. But here, at this gravel bar that we're standing here today, you have a lot of minnows. And we're hoping to find even some darters that live on the bottom. The minnow darter population has suffered the most due to development of the Yazoo Delta as an agricultural landscape. And the reason is that you have the sediment which prevents your bottom dwelling fish like darters to live. So they were more or less extirpated from some of the reaches here. And then you have your minnows that need flow. And also, as the water is fairly clear here too, and they're site predators. So the minnows are doing very well. And you'll see 4 or 5 different species today as we're seining through the gravel bars.
We've got a few islands of gravel bar that we're going to sample today. And one of the interesting components is the faunal aspect of these areas. We've got the fish sampling that we'll do. We'll be sampling the benthic macroinvertebrates, and we'll be sampling the freshwater mussels. Each of those components gives us a different taste of the stability of this environment. The mussels, because they're relatively sessile, they don't move a lot, give us a different snapshot than, say, the fish, which are migratory and have the ability to move with changes in environmental conditions. The interesting thing about the mussel communities within the state of Mississippi, if we will think of it that way, if you were to go through and sample streams and rivers in the state, you'd come up with a checklist of about 90 species of mussels. Driving through the Mississippi Delta, you look at the systems, the streams, and you would think, oh wow, this place has been hammered quite a bit. Not really pretty, not pristine, but the mussel fauna really tells you a total different picture. We've got a great assemblage of mussels here, things that you may not find in any other parts of the state. Something like the endangered rabbit's foot, found here in the Big Sunflower. Sheep nose, another federally listed mussel, found right here on this gravel bar. We've documented it in the past.
What we would hope to find in a system like this are organisms that require flow for respiration, for feeding, and we would hope to find less organisms that can tolerate a broader range of conditions. In particular, we would like to find the EPT taxa, which are your indicator organisms for good water quality. And those are Ephemeroptera, mayflies, Plecoptera, stoneflies, and Trichoptera, caddisflies. And those groups tend to have the most sensitive taxa within them, and they're more sensitive to changes in the environment. So macroinvertebrates can tell you not only what is happening right now while we're sampling, but the persistence of those populations can tell you about the history of the system itself. And for those organisms to be able to persist tells you that the conditions were right, or that they were good enough for them to continue to be here. And anything that we can do to improve the conditions or to mimic this habitat downstream, upstream, in other systems is going to improve the system as a whole.
We'll continue to monitor and sample this area for fish, macroinvertebrates, mussels, and also do some geomorphic studies of the condition of this gravel bar, because we want to make sure that it's preserved for future generations and be able to show the potential of restoration and what we can bring back into the delta if we control the substrates, the flow, and the riparian vegetation.